Good morning, Drew.
Good morning, Dan. How are you today?
Good. I'm good. Good to see you again.
What's new since last week?
Okay, so we talked last time, and I had a little bit of technical difficulties with Icon Composer, and
Right, right.
we were talking about how, or I was complaining about how when you export from Icon Composer and then import those icons into your app to use for your app icon, then upload to the App Store, it gives you an error saying that you have alpha channels or an alpha channel.
Oh yeah, yeah, right.
You were trying to help me, and the reason, well, I was doing a couple things wrong. One, you do not export the icons. You do exactly what you were telling me, which, to
Okay.
recap, is just take that whole icon composer file and the my icon is the file that you save from Icon Composer. Drag that into Xcode into your project, and then go into your select your target general and roll down to app icons and launch screen and type in the name of whatever you saved that file under Icon Composer. In my case, I have RTF icon, Relay Team Finder icon.
Okay. Okay. And I think
Eh,
that's where we were last time, but then you said
Okay.
you were still having trouble.
Yes. So it wouldn't build. Well, it wouldn't build because I was using the Icon Composer 2 beta and dragging that file into Xcode 26, not beta, the just the current release version of Xcode. So
Oh,
26.5. Uh,
I see. So that
so so the release of Xcode does not like the beta icon composer, and there are some new features in that. So what I had to do was re-download the original, the release version of Icon Composer, and actually rebuild my icon with that, but it didn't take but a moment.
ah,
And
all right.
then
So mixing
and
build of release and beta does not always work, right?
do not do that. Yes, and then I was able to successfully get that file into Xcode, and then it built just totally fine. And I uploaded it to the App Store just to test flight, and it worked totally fine. So that was my mistake, and thank you for the help on that. I do, however, think that for me, your average developer, the WWDC video implied exporting the icon, at least
Because
the
I
way
think
that
they said you can export it like this. I thought they actually said that.
they said export. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So
So
don't export it, just use the file.
all right. Well,
Anyway,
good to
enough of
know.
that. Yes, yes. Welcome back to Drew and Dan in the morning.
Great, great, great. All right. Well, what are we talking about today, Dan?
You have some interesting news. We're going to get into some AI news. We're going to scrape the political sphere with this a bit,
All
but
right.
talk about it. This is an interesting case. What happened yesterday, Drew?
All right. Well, what happened yesterday
To
is
us.
relevant to what happened like a week or so ago. So,
Okay.
quick background: Anthropic makes the models called Claude. Claude Code. A lot of developers use that. They've got about a couple months ago, they came out with a thing saying, "Hey, our new AI is so awesome, you can't even have it. It's too
Yeah,
dangerous,
yeah.
and because it's going to find all the bugs and all the exploits, and everyone's stuff is going to be at risk." And so they said this was Mythos was the model, and they said we're going to give this to just some trusted companies in high ranking places and some governments and things like that to
Right.
make them be able to help them be able to shore up their things before this just amazingly powerful force comes out into the world, which is about the best marketing they could have, right?
Sure. It's
It's
a
too
lot of
dangerous for you to use.
generated.
It's so good.
Yes.
So anyway, a little while ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, they released a different model called Fable 5. And Fable 5, they for us developers, they said, hey, you can use it at like your regular Claude pricing, Opus pricing for a while, a couple weeks, and then after, I think they said it was going to be like the 22nd of June or something. It was going
Okay.
to go to be its own new priced thing that was going to cost more. And everyone was kind of checking it out to see how it went. And I've heard some people say, hey, it was kind of a nothing burger, and others
Yeah.
say it was pretty impressive and it sets the new bar. So I don't know which was true because I didn't get that far on it myself.
Never got a chance to use it.
Before the our United States government said we need to apply export controls to this. I believe the actual thing that happened is someone reported a jailbreak, meaning they were able to subvert the system's controls against doing bad things. And in the model card, it says, cannot use it for cyber hacking or whatever,
Yeah.
and also for certain kinds of medical research. That it has hard guardrails against that. And I think someone had published, say, hey, I got around all the guardrails. This
Yeah.
was within it being like maybe within a week of it being out, a few
Yeah.
days to a week. And then anyway, so then the U.S. government says, oh, too dangerous. You have to putting export controls on this. No one who's not a U.S. citizen can use it.
Right.
Doesn't even,
So,
and even foreign nationals, if they're physically in the U.S. specifically, can also still not use it. Um,
so what
so
Anthropic did was just shut it down for everybody, right?
right, which is what
Nobody
could
can
they
use it.
do? Right, what could they
Yeah.
do? Right. So yeah, they shut it down for everybody, and I know I made a blog post or I don't know, I posted somewhere about something anyway about
Hmm.
how I thought, well, I don't either this isn't coming back at all, or there's going to have to be because the only way they can really comply with this is to verify everyone's identity who's using it, right? Because how can you say I'm not giving it to a U.S. citizen unless you are checking citizenship or checking identities or things like that?
Hmm.
Um, and it's interesting because even identity, like if you get my driver's license and find out who I verify that's who I am, that still doesn't prove I'm a U.S. citizen. That just proves I have a driver's license. So,
Sure.
because
Sure.
so I don't know if that would go beyond that. But anyway, I think it was well, I don't know if it's yesterday now. It was probably a week ago at this point, nearly. Um, Anthropic said, "Hey, Claude is now going to be there's going to be an option to have to go verify your identity to get Fable access, and I don't know, maybe Mythos access too. What was your reading on that, Dan?
I did not read about it. I actually, this is news to me, to be honest, that this just came out. I use AI as a tutor for me. Like I don't lean on it very heavily. I do use it in a way that I say, don't tell me the answer. So I'm not real heavy on
Right.
the latest models, the latest tools. I don't use I don't use Claude Code a command line interface or anything. It doesn't build my projects. I use Xcode and do that way. So for that reason, I am not up on the latest news. But this has been talked about a lot between podcasts, posts on Blue Sky, news
Yeah.
articles about this Fable thing. And so now hearing that it is being released if you verify your identity, that trips some interesting things from my perspective, because in building a social network that I did, I found myself, I want to be up on the history of social networks and how that affects communities, people. There's good things, there's bad things. I listened to a podcast called Revolution.social, which is run by Evan, I can't remember his last name. He's known as Rabble, one of the original founders of Twitter. I've read a book called Silicon Values. I was just trying to look that up. Silicon Values by Gillian C. York. Very good book if you're interested in the history of social networks and the implications of you know filtering, moderating, and the effects on different societies throughout the world. Another book, reading about the effect of social networks is called Invisible Rulers, and that talks about the effect
That's another
of
book you said?
it's another book. It's about the effect of social media influencers on society, how something viral can be posted on social media, whether YouTube, X, Twitter, Blue Sky, wherever, and how that can bubble up into mainstream media or bubble up into politics. And there is discussions about currently in politics of the age verification laws, which we've talked about a bit. Age assurance. Australia has implemented this. Texas, the United States, the UK just had a thing come out about this. And now we want to verify the identity of people before they can use these social networks under the guise of child protection, which is nobody is going to argue against child protection, against child sexual abuse material, predatory practices against children. absolutely we need all of those protections, or those are dangers that social media brings. And the
Absolutely.
way that these governments are trying to, you know, get those protections in place is through identity verification. And so because it's for child protection, absolutely we want to agree with that. You don't want to argue against that.
Can't argue
You're arguing
against like protecting children, right? Nobody can argue
absolutely.
against that.
Absolutely not. So now we're saying we need to identify everybody on the internet. That is bad. And the reason that is bad is because if you can't be anonymous on the internet, then you can't, it controls your speech. It controls
Yeah,
the what you say. There's something called the Hawthorne Effect, which is if you are being observed and you know you're being observed, you will behave differently. And so you will alter your behavior knowing that you are being observed. And when you start identifying people specifically, what they say and what they do on the internet, their actions will be altered. But
sure.
I feel that it is true because I'm not going to say, maybe what I really think. If you control the speech that's going out, you can control the society, right? You alter people's way of thinking. Um,
So let me ask you just kind of like a counterpoint here. So uh, I know many people will say, well, okay, but if you're not doing anything you're not supposed to be doing, why? What are you worried about?
Sure.
Right?
Until you are, or until what you say, you might think, well, I'm not a bad actor. I'm not doing bad things. But in Minnesota, we had the immigrations and customs enforcement uh, actions throughout the state this past winter, and I was one of the people that went out and protested. And I posted pictures of the protest. I am an individual in the United States exercising my First Amendment right of peaceful protest, and that's what it was. Now, if I was being identified as an individual exercising that right, and the government didn't like that or wanted to target people like that in some way, they could do that. Now, if you're being identified using Fable 5 and you type something into Fable 5 that may be unpopular uh, to the company or the government, now you are identified specifically as that person, and that is that is not good.
So you're saying like if you're okay. So you're saying that the the act of creating the record about you that's associated with you
Yes,
can lead to negative consequences even when each thing you're doing might be fine.
correct.
That
It
kind of what you're
it can
saying?
be it can be used against you.
Because you've got this established record, which, in the official sense is not a record because you didn't actually do something, but now you've been arrested for a thing because you had a
Yeah,
previous suspicion because of no real reason.
yeah.
I feel like that's a relates.
Connecting those dots. Yeah. So a way that you could connect the dot would be, I participated in a peaceful protest this last winter. Now, let's say I want to use Fable 5, and so I've identified myself, and I get into a conversation not just about software development, but I get into maybe a political discussion with Fable 5 that is unpopular. I think that this president is doing a bad job. When is the next election? Now, this might be a bit of a long walk, but the example that was given in one of the books that I read was if you take things that you write on the internet and you connect those to the real life person, my my thermostat is connected to the internet, right?
Sure.
And this was an example used in the book but people's heat being turned off because they were identified as being people that had done something unpopular with the government. And I don't think that seeing what I saw this past winter, that we could be too far away from a reality where if you say something unpopular on the internet, well, your internet access has just been reduced to dial-up speeds, or your thermostat has now been shut off until you pass some sort of
Mm.
maybe not a test, but do you see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you start connecting real life people to internet activity, and yeah, there's a lot of bad things that happen on the internet, but there's a lot of good things. But being anonymous allows people to examples are gay, trans, bi people to go places and connect with their community anonymously and have discussions that they couldn't otherwise have in real life. And so when you start connecting those real life people with online personalities, you inhibit that ability to be anonymous on the internet. You are being observed, and learning or teaching a society to act in a way that we are being observed is not good, and I'm very much against it.
That's really interesting. One of the things, so Anthropic has set up this identity verification system
Okay.
with Peter Thiel's company.
Mm,
Persona is what the company is called, and that has already had some issues in the past with keeping their data under control, basically. Um, and people are looking for alternatives, such as going to the Chinese models DeepSeek and GLM, which is kind of hilarious, since the whole point was to not let other people use our big powerful thing, but also, do you really want your people giving all their data to China instead?
sure. Or Peter Thiel's company. The thing we've talked a lot about on this podcast about Apple's age verification API,
Oh yeah.
right? I use it myself. So now, if Apple becomes the keeper of age verification, and or extend that a little bit further, not just age verification, but identity verification. So now they are the trusted source. They are the benevolent source of age and identity verification for accessing the internet, basically, or using anything social on the internet. Um, do you want to give Apple or any company that kind of power? Now they become ingrained in society as a
Oh, yeah. I mean,
necessity.
my answer generally is no,
No,
because like Apple right now has been in this 10 plus now, longer than that arc of focusing on privacy,
hmm,
and which I think probably reflects the values of those who have been running it. Uh,
yeah,
but just like, if you're in the political spectrum and you're getting some law passed that lets you do a thing and it's fine because you're not going to do anything bad with it,
sure,
but eventually somebody else comes to power, whether that's in the company of Apple or someone else or politically or whatever. Eventually someone else is in control and they still have the same abilities that you do, but now they feel like, oh, you know what, maybe I don't care that much about that, or
right.
maybe I think we should change the way that works, or maybe we should just sell the data for extra money. We'll upgrade our terms of service and update our terms of service, not upgrade our
Yeah.
terms of service. I
Well,
think that's a real risk in any time. And Apple, it's an interesting one because they've tried really hard not to have that sort of data,
right.
for the most part. Their age, what did you call it? Age verification thing isn't really an age verification, right? It's like an assertion,
Yeah.
because you
All it
create
says
the
is,
account
yeah, yeah,
and you
are you an
say,
adult? Yeah.
are you and it asks, yeah, initially it's like, are you an adult, or or you create a child account for someone else, like a child. It's like, well, you put in the date of birth. They don't tell you to send a birth certificate to
Right.
verify that, or your driver's license to verify your age on there. You're just asserting that this is correct, and Apple is passing along that assertion. And that's, I think, very much the way today, anyway, they would very much like that to be. But I do question if that will stand up to the various laws that are happening kind of everywhere, or if that will eventually become a problem because, like, well, I could just create an account and say I'm 36 and I'm actually 12.
It is pretty weak. You can just change your birthday.
Yeah.
It
So,
causes some other issues down the line, but yeah, it is fairly weak. But I don't really mind. Back to the point, like Apple is very focused on privacy, and I do trust Apple with they I trust them a lot with privacy, and what they say is what they do. But
let's do a quick check on that. How do you feel about Apple's digital driver's license, digital ID,
Oh,
putting it in your wallet.
yeah.
Are you a fan of that? Do you put your stuff in there? Would you,
Well,
if you haven't?
the state of Minnesota doesn't currently support
Correct.
that, but they do have there is a U.S. passport in there, and I have my U.S. passport
You do.
located into
Okay,
the
so
app.
you really
Yes.
believe what you're saying then. Okay,
Yes, I
good,
do.
good
I
deal.
do have
Good
that
deal.
on there. I use Apple Pay. I trust that greatly. I trust that Apple isn't using my photos in iCloud Photos to train whatever, or if they are, it's staying in Apple. Ooh, I don't that bridges. I'm not sure what they're doing with it, but I don't trust uploading my photos to Google because Google is going to process that data to learn more about me to sell to advertisers because Apple's primary business isn't advertisement, not yet. It's selling hardware, right? It's
Right.
providing
Yeah.
services. Their primary business isn't ads, and when your primary business is ads, Facebook, Google, and more, I think with the increased cost of LLMs, seeing ads filter into an LLM is inevitable. So
Right.
because
Now
how
I
are they
know
gonna?
OpenAI has said that uh they're all in on ads. I don't know exactly what they're
Right.
doing yet, but I know they've said, yeah, they're definitely going that direction.
Yeah. So now you're going to give OpenAI your identity or Anthropic your identity, and I mean, talk about target ads. We know so much about you.
Localization, localizing your app,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
which is, localization is not just translation. There's translation, right? You want to have your text be readable by whoever is using the app in their native language,
Mhm.
and that's definitely a big part of it. But the other part is there are things that are different than just the translation. One thing is like numbers or
Hmm.
like here in the US, we use a dollar sign and we say we separate our units of every, thousands, millions, whatever with commas, and we put a
Sure.
period before the cents or whatever, or the fractional portion of a number. In other places, they flip that around.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, historically, what you would say is you go through all these points, you make up your strings catalog, which is just all these strings you're going to use in your app, plus kind of a description of where they're all used, so you have the context. Because a word that we might use one word to mean a couple different situations in
Sure.
another language or another locale, you might uh, not use it. You might use two different words for that in that case. um, and one of the things that helps with localization is the all the accessibility stuff that we were talking about a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
because one of the biggest problems you have is having text fit at different languages. It fit perfectly in your language, but now it's, the thing you had that was short is now long, and the thing you had that was long is kind of short. Now it looks silly, and
Mhm.
um, and so a lot of making sure text fields can wrap lines or go multiple lines and whatever. But anyway, my point that I was getting to is that my walkthrough on that in the past was going to be very much going down this detail, and that still is relevant. But I think the right answer now is actually to use AI. I think the
Oh.
correct answer, the best answer. Apple mentioned in their keynote, hey, you can use our Xcode AI thingy to localize everything in your app. I'm like, really? You can just say localize my app. Well, I tried that in Xcode,
Mhm.
in the new Xcode 27 beta, and it was looking like it was going to do things, but honestly, there was too many questions about approve this and approve that and approve this and
Mhm.
approve that. So I went back to Claude Code and not running the new, what was it called? Fable, but
Fable.
just the Opus 4.8. And I said, hey, I need you to localize my app. That means, of course, all the translations into, I said, whatever languages the App Store supports. I think there's like 35 or 38 of them or whatever,
Mhm.
into all those locales. But I said, we're not just talking languages here. We're talking about, for example, Spanish Mexico is not the same as Spanish Spain,
Right.
uh, and that kind of thing. And I forget, I gave it kind of a little punch list of things that came across my mind, and it went through and did a bunch of stuff, and then I went and checked it and found a couple things that didn't quite meet the bar. But I told it, for each one, you have to go through and you have to, you know, well, first figure out all the strings thing, and then with each of those, translate it for each of the locales, and
Sure.
then kind of reverse translate everything too to make sure it makes sense over each one. And I gave it kind of a long, detailed thing, which I'm pretty sure I could probably post or something or include with this podcast. But basically, that ended up being the right answer. It went on doing its thing for quite a while, and there were a couple areas that it had like some couple questions, like oh, and this there was one spot where it was one of those things where we're creating a string on the fly based on some data, and part of it is the data from the string, and then it's like, well, to properly pluralize it, or um,
I have a question about you said the best method here is to use AI to localize your app.
I really believe that's true
Right.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't
Better
used to think
than
that.
a native, like if I want to go to Arabic, finding a native Arabic speaker to
I
localize my
mean,
app to Arabic. You'd say AI is better or
probably
faster?
better. Oh, it's certainly faster because
Sure.
we're gonna find. I mean, you're gonna find native
I know
speakers for
one.
35
I know one.
languages.
Well,
Okay,
no, I don't know that many.
like right. Well, that's
Yeah,
that's part of the problem. I know I used a place called something
sure.
Sky or Cloud or something a long time ago where I basically made the string catalog and with all the descriptions, and I loaded it into their thing, and then they assign it out to native speakers to go and
Right.
do all the translations. And I did that for my game, back in 2015 or something, a long time ago.
Okay.
And that worked well, and it didn't cost me too much money, and it was fine.
Okay. But
Uh,
if we're tied into using an AI model, and now we have, and that's the best way to do 35 different languages in a very short period of time, but we're also required to submit our identity verification. Is this the tie-in? Like, we're kind of
well,
locked
it's
in.
uh, yeah. Where was that? What was that? What was the tie-in? Now I'm sorry, I kind of forget what it was. Oh, it was just that the AI is not required for jobs, a lot of them yet, but at some point it almost gets there because something like this is something like, okay, yeah, every app should probably be localized for everywhere. That would be ideal.
That would be nice.
Um, every app should have all of its accessibility stuff done. That would be ideal. Well,
Right.
they're both pretty time consuming. I was at the Apple store the other day getting my phone repaired, and the
Hmm.
person helping me was blind.
Oh,
And so he's using voiceover on a
oh,
phone and on his Mac, and getting all the things done and checking me in and doing all that. And I just really drove the point home to me of just really how important all this accessibility stuff is. And
yeah.
I said something to him about I was working on accessibility in some app, and I just seeing someone use it, it really is instructive. And we talked a little bit about areas where he ran into trouble or had problems, and he's like, we really really appreciate it. He's like, one of the things that he was happy about is that Apple is adding this accessibility, well, these nutrition labels. I guess they're already
Hmm.
there, but they're sort of pushing them more, because he said one of the issues that you would go and you download some app or you would try it and you don't even know if you're going to be able to use it.
Hmm.
And some of them you would get through the onboarding, and that would all be fine, and then you get to the regular app and there's nothing is usable, and it's very hard to
Yeah.
navigate in a lot of cases. And the watching him use like the Apple tools, there was a couple places where he definitely still ran into trouble and was having, like in one case, he ended up rebooting his Mac because he couldn't find
Hmm.
a thing or wasn't acting the way he was expecting. And so I think there's still even a company that's trying hard at that. There's
Yeah,
a lot of room
it's
there.
the tools that become available in society, and then you get dependent on those tools, and then now you have a caveat that requires you to maybe give up some of your, dare I say, morals or something, or
Yeah,
you give away some of your freedoms. My car knows exactly how fast I'm going at any given moment, whether or not I'm wearing my seatbelt. It's got cameras all over. And that data is being sent away, and so I knowingly am giving away that data about myself.
right.
So when we extend that now to, you've created a tool in society that's out there in the world that is useful in some ways, but now you're creating this moral dilemma of, give us your exact identity to use this tool. And
Right. And and how this ties back to what we were talking about.
Mhm.
So I was looking at Anthropic's identity verification on Claude, and it talks about, what are we verifying, what you'll need. Talks about a government issued photo ID, a phone with a camera or a computer, and a few minutes of your time. It makes it sound not that bad. And then it talks about how your data is used, and we're only going to have it be between us and the company that's doing the verifying, and we won't give it to anybody else unless, of course, the government gives us a legal thing saying we have to. It says that right here.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the very bottom of the document, there's like the last section is, why did my account get banned after verification? I'm like, jeez, like, why, if that's right in the doc initially, and then there's a submit an appeal button after that. As part of our safety process, we may ban an account for a variety of reasons: repeated violations of our user policy, account creation from an unsupported location,
Mm-hmm.
okay, terms of service violations, or under 18 usage. And then there's an appeal button there. Okay, well, I don't want my account to get banned because now I'm using this thing for work. And that was my point. Is I'm getting
Sure.
to, uh, doing this localization I think it's important, and I'm sure as the heck not going to do it the other way. The one place I used as a service before, I had logged in there a couple months ago to see if I could still do that there, and they've changed everything. I don't know how to use it anymore, so I was like, well, okay,
Yeah.
guess I'm not using that again. But the point is, it's a useful tool, and for me to not have it for my work would be problematic. But then now, if I want the best version of the tool, apparently I have to give my ID. And then if I get my account banned, what's going to happen then? Well, I don't know, but it's going to be a problem for me.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to have to use all the Chinese tools or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let me go back a little bit where I listen to these podcasts and I read these books about this government oversight and the inability to exercise your rights as an individual, or for fear of retribution, or for fear of surveillance. And you listen to all these discussions, and some of it kind of bothers me because I think, like, well, what's the solution? You're just talking, what's
Right.
the
Yeah.
answer?
What's the solution? So what is the solution?
Here's my solution,
Okay.
and I don't know if it's a solution, but it is. It's two-part. One, vote. If you can vote, vote. Vote vote your conscience, and vote for people that you think, and you do the best you can when you vote, that will uphold your rights as a citizen. Secondly, you need to decide for yourself: is this tool, service, product worth me giving up some of
Worth the exchange.
worth the
Yeah.
exchange?
Like in the case of your car, you obviously
Yeah,
feel like that's worth it
I love my car.
because, yeah, you love your car.
Yeah,
It's
love
your
my car.
baby. You love it. It does great things for you, and you're fine. And so you're fine to. They have your ID. They have your everything. They know
Yeah,
everything you do. They have video.
yeah, and I think that's the answer. Is it? But you have to ask yourself that. We all carry around our phones with GPSs in them, and we put apps on them, and that all of those apps that collect data, and what data is being sent where, and you have to make that decision. And when is enough enough? And it just, sometimes it seems like this thing, like, oh, you want to use this LLM, this great model for your work? We're gonna need a little more from you, and
Right. Right.
I
Well, and
just hate
so
it.
is it okay if I say what kind of car you have?
Yeah, Tesla Model
Okay,
3.
so you have Tesla. So in the case of Tesla, do you feel like is there like can I buy a Tesla and not give all that information away? Is it possible? Can I use
I
the
don't. I
car?
honestly don't. I honestly don't think it is. I mean, I think one thing you could do would be not using the app on your phone,
Okay.
which is going to, greatly reduce a lot of the features. You don't have to use the app. You can use the key card to get into it. You can use the key card to start it, and then you can drive. But you're still going to have all those cameras. The car still knows where you're going. It's still tied to you as a person. So, I mean, my short answer would be
Mostly
no.
not.
Mostly not. No.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's something,
Yeah.
you would need to know, you would want to know before you buy the car. Like, and
Right.
then, yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Do you have a smartwatch? I mean, a lot of people do. A lot of us do. It's strapped to my body all the time and knows my health data. It goes back to that trust. I trust Apple with my health data. There was something about using OpenAI's model, ChatGPT, or giving your health information to ChatGPT. Do you remember something about that?
I don't think so. No. What
There
was
was some kind of a they were doing some kind of a health related thing, and I saw that and I thought, hell no, no way I'm giving my health data to OpenAI. No way. So those are the limits, the lines that I draw in the sand for now. And those lines
Yeah.
get blurred. They get pushed and pushed, and you get pushed enough, and you just sometimes you just give up.
You just, yeah.
It's a
Well,
sad
you're
human
right.
state, you know. What's your what's your overall thought about this? I don't know if I've asked you.
Gosh, I'm really torn, honestly. I ran into my one of the first refusal messages I had seen in a long time from one of these AIs.
Mm.
Just the other day, I was working on my chess training thing.
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know, I've got a machine learning project I've been working on using Apple's MPS graph to build a machine learning model to train it to play chess, and it's not very good yet. And it's mostly been a learning project for me. But I was running it under the macOS 27 beta,
Mm.
and everything kind of went badly once I put it under the beta. And one of the issues I was running into was the actual, I think it was I don't know if it was the MPS graph compiler or the metal compiler was crashing when I was trying to compile the graph object, and I was trying to figure out why it was crashing. And so I was talking with Claude. I said, well, just go through all the different directive things we use in the app, enumerate them all in a file.
Mm.
Now that we've got them all listed, put a number by every one of them, and then we're going to go through one at a time. You're going to try each one of them in as many different ways as we can with as many edge cases as we can think of, and just go through all of them and see which ones crash and which ones don't. And we're going to write a nice little piece of feedback to Apple and whatever. Well, anyway, I got to a point on that where it was crashing and I was like, oh, try it on all three data types that we use, to see if it crashes on all of them. And we ended up with, because we found a sequence that crashed reliably, but we're trying to still narrow it down to if it's certain operations or whatever. And the last one it did is it like tried it, the three different ways, and I saw its like tool result come back where it's like, oh, this crashed, that crashed. And I didn't actually get any response from the LLM. And instead, I got a big long thing saying, "Oh, it looks like you might be violating our terms of service."
Oh,
Yeah, I'm like, well, what?
what?
And it basically thought, I'm pretty sure I took screenshots, but it basically thought I was doing some kind of hackery cyber investigation thing because I was, repeatedly um, exercising certain APIs or interfaces to figure out exactly which ones crashed and which ones didn't and what data types made it crash. And
Oh,
they thought, oh, you probably might be doing something bad here, and there's a big long bunch of text, and it says, hit escape twice and talk about something else, or start a new conversation and talk about something else.
huh.
And then the long thing had in it, among other things, it said, because it says, oh, these models can't be used for this or that. And but it said, we have a verified, what is it, a cyber verification program, they call it.
Mm.
And it's a program to say, well, if you're doing some of these things in a legitimate way, because there's, some things that are completely not allowed, like, trying to do a denial of service attack, for example, on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But other things that might be allowed, like researching something. And so they call those dual use items. So some of the dual use items might be permitted in certain situations. And so there's a thing, well, you could fill out a form to request this cyber verification program to request this be fine. And the first question it asks was, how did you or what's a typical thing you might be using Claude for that in this context?
Mm-hmm.
And they had an example of like I like to upload binaries or parts of files and have Claude analyze them to see if they contain malware,
Sure.
something like that. And that was their example. And I just said, well, I like to chase down bugs that are bothering me, especially. I don't know what to say. Right. And then there was another one of like, well, what's your, describe kind of in detail your use case.
Hmm.
And so I described in detail my use case with lots and lots of detail about what exactly I was doing and why and everything. And I'm like, well, it's probably Claude or someone's going to be looking at this anyway. So I could probably be thorough and long-winded a little bit,
Hmm.
And then the next one was like, okay, now tell us about your credentials. Like what have you, do you have any papers you published? Have you been on any CVE reports, like some like vulnerability reports that you've turned into places? You have like, a website, a blog, anything like that. Give us your LinkedIn, I'm like, well,
Wow.
my LinkedIn. So I put my LinkedIn and I put, well, I do iOS stuff. I've been a developer for this long. I've done some stuff with AI. This is a research project, blah, blah, blah. I gave it a lot of detail. And then there was another question of like, well,
And,
like
and
what specifically were you doing?
this is all just to get like kind of this next level of access to the
Yeah,
model.
yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
that
And
right?
the
Okay.
next level access thing says, and I did get it. Fast forward, punchline here.
Okay.
Asks a few more questions, but yeah, let's see. Thanks you for applying to the cyber verification program. Oh yeah, they say you will. Our aim is to get back to you with a decision within 2 business days.
Hmm.
And then it says, hey, thank you for submitting your application. Upon review, we have adjusted the safeguards applied to your account to allow for the cyber use cases you described. And it says what this means: dual use cybersecurity activities, for example, vulnerability exploitation or offensive security tooling, will no longer be blocked by default for the organization associated with this approval. Then it gives you an organization ID.
Yeah.
Approval
So
applies only to this organization. If you work on multiple orgs, each one needs its own application. And it
you've gone
says
into a bucket now at Anthropic, right? Like
yeah,
your account is in a bucket that's
it's in a
associated with
bucket.
it.
And it says that you might still have things blocked. And it says this really only applies to the exact use case you talked about. So you could still get blocked for other things, and there's certain things that are still prohibited, like developing ransomware, for example.
Sure.
That's going to remain blocked. And then they say if you're still seeing blocks, confirm your organization ID matches, confirm the activity isn't prohibited use, and then escalate suspected false positives using our false positive escalation form,
Yeah.
which I guess they have. Um, but I was really on the fence about even filling out that form because I was like, well, if I fill this out, I don't know, because I was like, it was really caught me off guard because, like, again, kind of the same thing. I'm finding the tool valuable.
Yep.
I'm using it for work, and I don't want to not suddenly have the tool because I bumped up against some guardrail that like 3 times in a row or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that means anything, but I don't know. The whole area is really
Yeah.
hard to reason about what is the right thing to do. A friend of mine, I know, he said like, oh, he's had 4 or 5 accounts because they keep getting shut down. I'm like, oh, geez, like doesn't seem to be any skin off his back, but I worry about it. I don't want to get on
That
anybody's
seems
bad list, basically.
right. Right. Yeah. And what's a bad list? I mean,
Well, right.
I mean, there's certainly cybersecurity, child sexual abuse material, all those things are definitely bad things. And I want to not let people do bad things, but people do bad things, and how do we prevent it? It's this round and round, and it is an ongoing, cat and mouse game. And but yeah, for me, I have no need for Fable 5. I certainly have no. I mean, I don't even pay for any LLM model. I'm not.
You're doing great.
I
Just great, Dan. That's awesome.
I just struggle along. And but so for me, it's kind of an easy decision. Like I don't need to do that. But you know, iOS 27 coming out, new Siri advancements. How long until that our phones determine, or whatever device we're using at the time, if you're only 15, you only get this much access to the on-device LLM or on-device model or whatever, and then you pass a gate of age, and then that doesn't seem like a long way off, where you get
No, no,
access to
not
higher levels,
probably not.
so
One of the things Apple, like I said, was their private compute cloud. What do they call it?
mhm.
Privacy cloud,
Private
something.
cloud compute, I think. Yeah.
Private cloud compute. That's the word. And that you know, uh, developers would get access to it with some limits.
Mm.
Um, but then I've heard people talking. I haven't seen this yet. I don't know where they saw this, but that the limits would be, or that it's only going to be available if you've had less than 2 million downloads or something.
Hmm.
And like I know some developers complain, like, well, I had this thing I put out in 2015 or 2011 that definitely had a lot of downloads. It didn't make me any money. It certainly doesn't affect me in any way today, but nonetheless, I can't use this thing because,
Interesting.
and if I do use the thing and then I get a bunch of downloads, then what? It's going to stop working, or
Yeah, which defeats the whole purpose. I made a tool that
which
works.
defeats the
Now it's
right,
using too
right.
much compute.
Now it's using too much and I can't use it. So
Yeah.
hopefully hopefully that gets figured out. But yeah, I don't know. So as far as that goes, I don't know. I think we're in a weird spot, and everything's kind of in flux. And I think
It is.
Trying to navigate it kind of thoughtfully and a little bit
Yeah.
cautiously, I think is probably
Yeah.
the right
You know,
approach.
to maybe wrap this up, we're pushing our time again. Our 30-minute
Please.
time that we try to do is just is really getting hard. But to do a little bit of navel gazing, this stuff is all really interesting to me. That another friend of mine and I were talking about how, like, what a time to be alive. Like, for my whole life experience, and maybe whenever you're born is whenever you're born, and you think what a time to be alive. But the technology, the advancements that I've seen in my lifetime, and to see this, and to see it from the beginning, whatever this is, this smart text completion or AI, or to see the changes of when Google came about, and like you can
Oh gosh, yeah.
right.
I had my grandmother was born, I think, in 1904, lived to 2008,
Okay.
something like that, so 104
Hmm.
roughly. And I remember thinking about all the things that she saw in her life because she
Yeah.
had, they were people were mostly using horses when she was a
Hmm.
young child, and then okay, so now we have horses, we have cars, we have airplanes, radio, TV,
Yeah.
and phones, internet, satellite things. Like, oh my gosh, all these
Right.
things. And I remember thinking, like, gosh, like so much change, and now that I'm here in the world, nothing's happening anymore. That's what
It
I
is,
thought,
but it,
but I didn't realize that at the
yeah.
time. Um and yeah, and it turns out no, a lot is happening, and it's still happening very, very quickly, much quicker even than that time for sure. And uh
Yeah.
it is a remarkable time to be alive.
Yeah. We keep on living. Well, I've got to wrap it up here, Drew.
Alrighty, well, you have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Thanks,
All
Dan.
right. Talk to you later. Bye
All
bye.
right, bye.